The following is a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about them Cowboys?
Go Cowboys! This is Girls Talk, Boys Talk, presented by Jigsaw Dating, preferred dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys, and broadcasting live from Dallas Cowboys World Headquarters at the Star.
Good morning.
What a start, man. Welcome into Girls Talk, Boys Talk, brought to you by Aisha's Deep Sigh. Haley Sutton, Jess Navarez, and Aisha Morrison back with you. Girlies, I have missed you guys. This last week, obviously, I was on vacation. It was nice to get away. I know you were at Taylor Swift. We're going to talk about that later, but we don't have time to get into it.
Trust me, I would take this whole podcast if I
Aisha,
could.
you have been working so hard on the
Yes.
draft show, but I'm excited to just have our space for 45 minutes to talk a little Cowboys, get back into the groove, especially with the draft. I believe it's just about 21 days away. So
21 the days. 21.
3 weeks
I'm not
away.
doing it to myself.
But obviously, since then, there has been a lot of moves for this organization. We've talked about it pretty regularly, but something that I found interesting yesterday, USA Today put out an article saying that the Cowboys won March. They did the best when it came to improving their roster going into that 2023 season. I believe that they are sitting at 7th overall in the NFL, but they were 5th on the USA Today poll when it came to moving pieces. That kind of led me to think about, how close this team is to getting to a Super Bowl, because we've talked about that for the last year. They were knocking on the door. But just looking at some of the moves that the Cowboys have made so far in free agency, we know they've added Stephon Gilmore, Brandon Cooks, Ronald Jones, Chuma Edoga, and Trent Sieg. They also have signed a couple of guys who were here last year to bring them back: Rico Dowdle, C.J. Goodwin, Dante Fowler, just a few of the guys as of recently who have been added back onto this Cowboys roster. And we'll kind of dive into different pieces of this. But from y'all's perspective, how close is this team to a Super Bowl when you look at what they've done so far through March? Not counting the draft coming up, because we'll get into that. But if you were to take this team and put them against the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl, what do they look like?
Oh, hello. Good morning. Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning. For me, when you look at the progression this team has had just in the last, 3 seasons under Mike McCarthy, I will never stop giving him credit for how much he has pushed this team to level up every season. And again, Aisha and I talk about how we took off our fan hats and we put on our media and journalism hats to really cover the team this last season. And talking to people that have covered this team for years and years and years last season were telling us this is a special team. This is a special year. So I think they were close last season, but there was still some moving parts that needed to be addressed. And so for me, I think they're closer than they've been in a really long time. And the only other time I can really think back of to compare it to is probably 2016 through 2018 when Dez did catch the ball and my hopes and dreams were shattered once again. And I did cry. I'm not going to lie. When he caught the ball, I did cry. But that's okay. I think we all did together. But that's really the only other team I can, in my time of being, really deep diving into the Cowboys, I can compare it to. They're close. I think if everybody comes in with this focus and this hunger that they're going to, they're going to be very close.
Yeah, for me, you start with the quarterback. You start at the fact that when you look around the NFC and you look at the quarterback situation, you by far have one of the best, if not the best. Aaron Rodgers is still a Green Bay Packer, if I'm not mistaken, so I'm not going to be disrespectful. Wow. However, you start with the quarterback. I think it was also super important. I think they're close because they're returning almost the same defense that they've put together, and they can continue to build upon the foundation. I think they've really set a foundation on the defensive side of the ball that allows them to stay top tier on that side of the ball, and it really simplifies. Okay, so now you just look at the offense. Now you look at how does the offense get better, and we've heard Mike McCarthy talk about just how it may change a little bit. I think he said 30% of it will change, and they'll be able to refine some things. You also added, like you talked about, you added Brandon Cooks. The receiver situation is a big reason why a lot of people felt like maybe the Cowboys couldn't get over the hump last year. Then cornerback too, you add Stephon Gilmore. You're doing the things to shore up the issues that you had at the end of the season that gleamed against the 49ers, but also returning Dan Quinn, bringing him back, bringing the defensive foundation back. I really think simplifies how you move forward for next season because people already know that defense is going to be good, right? Special teams, you bringing back Bones Fossil, you have some of the guys that are still there. Got to figure out kicker.
Don't get me started.
But you have foundations on other sides of the ball. We're just looking at the offense. So, if they're just refining the offense and kind of trying to improve some things on the offense, I think you are close because of the guys you were able to bring back.
Yeah, I think it's important to note, I know, and we've talked about this 100 times too, but just the coaching effect. Before it was really the big emphasis on Dan Quinn and the type of relationship that he builds with these players on that defensive side of the ball. I'm curious to see if that translates over to the offensive side of the ball, just to see if Shoddy can have that same impact, from that side. It's been said, that he has a really good relationship with Dak Prescott. And now you're bringing in a bunch of different wide receivers who are going to help bolster that. CeeDee Lamb has been hard at work down in South Florida, training with Tua's former trainer down there with Jerry Jeudy and all that. So you're kind of starting to see that side of the ball click. It's been fun, too, just to see some of the guys out here in the offseason, working out. I saw Peyton and Jake out there getting some work in. So it feels like they're trending in the right direction. And then, just seeing what these new pieces can do and the chemistry that they already have. Brandon Cooks went on Adam Schefter's podcast and talked about, Stephon Gilmore on that defensive side of the ball and, what he's going to bring and the instant impact he's going to make. So I do think it's important that, to recognize that these guys are already clicking and they're not even, into OTAs or into training camp yet. Now, something else that kind of piqued my interest, Tyreek Hill went on a podcast as well, and he talked about, in 3 years, he's going to finish out his contract in Miami, and then he's going to retire. And that kind of prompted me to think about, okay, Tyreek Hill is one of the best wide receivers in the game right now, probably one of the best to ever play the game, given his speed. And he kind of talked about the emphasis of wanting to win a championship in that 3 years. And so it kind of feels like for Miami, at least, there's a window, right? There's a window where they have all the pieces and they're clicking and they're building. And in that 3 years, that's kind of their window to win a championship. And I promise I'm getting somewhere with this.
No.
So that made me kind of think about the Cowboys, right? And just circling back to what you were saying, for the last couple of years, it's really felt like it's on an uptick. My question is, do you feel like this Cowboys team also has a window, or is this a coaching staff, is this a roster that has the ability to maintain that high level of play?
So I do think that there is a window for them specifically because of what's happening in the NFC. I do think right now when you look at the quarterback position in the NFC, it is I'm not going to say it's weak, but it is in a weird position, transitional position, I think, right now. And with that going on and teams trying to find their identity, trying to find their franchise quarterback, which is difficult, you having the quarterback and the defense to kind of pair, to me, puts you a little ahead of a lot of the people in the NFC. So I do think there's a window as far as when are those teams going to get those star-studded quarterbacks. No shade to Derek Carr. I totally forgot about him at the same.
But when
no shade.
But when are those teams?
Take time
like
to get
it
used
may
to.
take time for those teams to find their new franchise quarterbacks. In the meantime, hey, you got a guy. So I do think that puts them in a different position than the other teams. But also too, I also feel like as far as the window goes, I feel like that's how it is because the NFL is just ever changing. Mm-hmm. I feel like every year there's a difference. There's a difference in how offenses are being run, how defense is being played, and to stay, relevant and keep going. I will say, if Dan Quinn is someone that is going to stay around for a while defensively, they have set a foundation for themselves that they can build upon. They have an identity. They have identity that I think with the right coaching staff can continue. But the rest of it, the offensive side of the ball, their window to me is weird because of the quarterback position in the NFC.
I think for me, when you look at that window, it comes down to contracts, and it comes down to how long these guys are under contract with the Cowboys. So you have, and even age, right? Football age is so different than regular age.
I know,
because
right?
you're talking about a guy
They're
who's
like
in
26
his 30s.
and they're like, oh, I'm so old.
He's so, yeah. I'm like, oh, guys, I'm
Same.
27. Please stop it. Yeah, I think it comes down to how long you have with these guys, because there's going to be a time where, contract conversations do come up. Look what happened with Zeke. The contract conversation came up, and he's no longer on the team. And so you have bigger names. You have Zach Martin, first of all. Let's start with him. Not a contract conversation, but an age. When is he going to feel like he's done? That's a big part of your offensive line there. He is a staple of your O-line. You have D-Law, who I almost called him D-Ware because I was watching your video on your story.
Oh, I know, so cute, right?
D-Law, who, contract conversation is going to come up eventually.
Next season.
You have these big guys and these big names who make your identity, to your point, Aisha, that eventually this team, yes, you have these younger guys coming in to fill those gaps when that time does come, but you have the pieces you need now in this moment, and you need to utilize on it while you have it, because there's no guarantee you have a Dan Quinn next season. There's no guarantee that you have a Mike McCarthy next season. That's just the nature of this game. And so for me, the biggest thing that I look at is the longevity of these players and how long you actually have them to utilize them, because once that point comes and they're not here, then you kind of have to start from scratch again, and that takes your window back, and you're kind of starting over again.
I always go back to what J-Ron Kerr said after the 49ers loss in the playoffs, when he was asked about, how important is it to keep this roster together. And he said, these are my brothers. These are guys who, I've grown to love and to play with, and I want to continue to do that. But the roster is never the same, from season to season. And so just circling back to our original topic here, just, the fact that Dan Quinn has been able to keep the defense together, I think that's your core, that's your bread and butter, that's what you build on. And hopefully, with CD kind of stepping into that role, I'm curious to see, is he going to come right from the jump and pick up where he left off last season and improve that way? Or is it going to take a second to get back into the groove? I'm interested to see, as much as I have faith that Tony Pollard is going to make a full recovery, I'm interested to see, how his recovery goes and how if he's still able to have that same pop, to have that same, I'm trying to think of the word as I was doing it.
Same burst.
Yes, thank you. I'm like, what is this movement that I'm doing? So I think it'll be interesting to see. Last question here before we pivot. Sticking with that window, what do you think it is?
What do you mean? The window? How long the window is?
Yeah. Like, if you were going to give, the core of this roster, obviously there will be changes every year, but if you were going to rate this team and say this team has this many years to win a Super Bowl, what is it? Given that Mike McCarthy has 2 years left on his contract, we don't know if Dan Quinn will be here.
Right.
I know it's a hard one, but I want to push you guys.
I think for me, your window started in 2021. When we're not talking about the COVID year, because that was obviously a weird season for every sport, including the NFL, and it just didn't help that was Mike McCarthy's first year coaching, right? So I'm going to say your actual window started in 2021. You're in the middle of your window, and for me, I think you have one more year after this, if that. If you have Dan Quinn back, you have one more year. If you do not have Dan Quinn back, your window kind of gets set back a little bit depending on where the pieces fall at that point. But really, you look at it, this is your year. It's this year. It's you get past that hump or you don't. And
I love that.
This is all on the line. This is your all on the line year. And, you talk about redemption and you talk about coming back even stronger. And there's so many question marks that, we don't even get into yet about the health. And Tony Pollard, is he going to come back the same? And who's going to look the same? Who's going to look better? Who isn't? Who is? You have to make sure that all of those things are shored up and lined up. But this is your year. It has to be this year, because to me, you're in the end of that window with the contract situations coming up. Look, teams are swarming Dan Quinn, and they should be for a head coaching position, as they absolutely should be. And all of us were preparing to have a moment of mourning if Dan Quinn got a head coaching position somewhere else. But to me, like you said, your identity now is your defense, which took a while to get used to. if you do not have Dan Quinn, if you do not have this coaching staff that you do now that is, it's new this season and it works, I would say, to me, your window ends this year. But because you have a lot of new faces on your coaching staff, I'm going to give them another year to say next year as well.
Okay, bonus year. So Jess says 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it could be. I think in the next couple of years, it could be the path of least resistance. I think it could be less difficult in the next couple of years. But quite honestly, if you're going to keep this QB, if this QB is going to continue to play well, if you're going to keep this QB, continue to draft the way that you do, and also if they have the same semi-aggressiveness that they've had to start this free agency, if this is turning the page of like, you know what, we actually might go get some star players and finesse some things or whatever, then I think you have a little bit more of a window. Because the problem with the Cowboys is that people have always felt like, why are you not involved in free agency actively early? Why are you not doing that?
Yeah.
If they're turning the page there, they enter themselves in the conversation to be competitive every year if you have a franchise quarterback and you continue to draft well. So for me, I think in the next couple of years, it could be maybe not as difficult to get, to the pinnacle. But if they continue to lay the foundation for what they're doing, I think they can stay relevant and stay competitive and be in the playoff conversation and make a push for years to come.
I love that. Yeah, I think it kind of comes down to Dak Prescott, if we're honest. Just like you said, if you're going to build a team around the quarterback's got to be able to meet expectations too. I kind of feel the way you feel, Jess, just given, the way that the NFL is constantly changing, your running back situation, how they get mileage so much quicker and for lack of a better term, they become more dispensable as the league goes on. So it'll definitely be interesting to see. But the good news is, this roster will not be the same roster as it will be in a couple of weeks, like I teased earlier. We've got the draft coming up. We've had some new names in the building as a part of the NFL's official 30 visits. We're going to take our first break, but when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the guys who've been in the building and who we think would best fit this Cowboys team. This is Girls Talk Boys Talk, presented by Jigsaw.
At Jigsaw Dating, we obviously want the Cowboys to bring that 6th ring home. But to be honest, we're more focused on finding the person who will put a ring on your finger. That's why we created a dating app that reveals your face through meaningful conversation, so you can date deeper. Because it's personality that matters the most, not looks. Join Jigsaw Dating today, dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys.
All right, Pepsi-loving football fans, it's time we had a lesson in trash talk. And I'm not talking about that stuff that happens on the field. What I'm talking about is trash, and it's the only thing that belongs in your garbage can. Now, recycling might not be as thrilling as converting a 4th and long, but next time you're thinking about throwing that Pepsi Zero Sugar bottle away, just cap it back up and pretend you're down by 6 with the recycling bin wide open. Know the difference? Make a difference. Be a team player and recycle. Visit PepsiTrashTalk.com to learn more.
I'm Dak Prescott, quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys.
And they snap it to Prescott, who looks right. It's not there. He escapes left. He'll run for a first down.
Just like football, when it comes to crypto, it's important to have a team you can trust. With blockchain.com, I know I'm in good hands. Since 2011, they've been trusted by millions around the world to buy, sell, and trade cryptocurrency.
Prescott's going to run this himself. Run it up the middle, and he scores.
Whether you're new to crypto or an active trader, they've got you covered. What are you waiting for? Get started at blockchain.com.
To our second block of Girls Talk Boys Talk, presented by Jigsaw, the preferred dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys. We're going to get into some draft prospects, but first we're going to go to Jess.
Register now for the 2023 Dallas Cowboys Youth Camps presented by Invisalign. Athletes ages 6 to 16 are invited to learn from the best this summer at AT&T Stadium or Ford Center at the Star in Frisco. Football camps are led by former NFL players, and cheer camps are taught by current Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders. Save $25 when you sign up for camp by May 12th. Visit DallasCowboys.com/camps for more information.
Well, speaking of former Dallas Cowboys player DeMarcus Ware, I shared a video on my Instagram today that the Cowboys put out of DeMarcus Ware asking Jerry Jones to be his presenter at the Hall of Fame. And I love that video for so many reasons. Number one, because DeMarcus Ware is one of my favorite players he's ever played for this organization. But also just recognizing the relationship that Jerry and DeMarcus have had, even in, his departure to Denver and going and winning a Super Bowl with another team, the fact that his allegiance still lies with this organization and, that he thinks so highly of Jerry Jones. I thought that was so special. And I am excited to see, the next player to kind of come in and be in that same type of role, being an impact player for this organization, which brings us to this year's upcoming draft. Like I said earlier, just about 3 weeks away from that, and the Cowboys have been super busy over the last week, welcoming in some prospects that they think would be a good fit. I'm going to mention just a few of the names that they've gone through so far that have been reported. I'm not going to get into all of them because there's quite a few, but just some of the ones that stand out to me off the top. You've got Boston College wide receiver Zay Flowers, another wide receiver out of TCU, and Quentin Johnson, and then Jalen Hyatt, who is a wide receiver out of Tennessee, Trenton Simpson, linebacker from Clemson. That's clever. Keandre Miller from TCU, who's a running back. DeMarvin Overshown, who's from Texas, a linebacker as well, who was really high. I know a lot of our reporters here at the Cowboys are really high on him. Jonathan Mingo, Steve Avila. There's a lot of names on this list who have been talked about pretty highly across the board. Now, you ladies were here last week, and I know you kind of got into some of the 30 prospects that were here. But based on our conversation in the last block, just getting into the Super Bowl, now that we're kind of approaching that closer mark to the draft, we're having opportunities to look at these players a little bit in a special way. I want to start kind of with the wide receivers first. Out of these guys who have been visiting, who do you think is a good fit for this team based on the players that they already have on this roster? And let's get into why you think that. Oh, Lord.
I know.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, so with the wide receiver room, I do think that Brandon Cooks kind of shook things up for me. And obviously, we talk about it on the draft show, it's just kind of, he doesn't fit the mold of what the Cowboys offenses have looked at, for a wide receiver. So I wonder if there's a shift in thinking. And if you look at these guys on here, most of these guys are speedy guys that can move, that are explosive. And so for me, I'm a big Zay Flowers fan. I am a person that thinks the guy can play anywhere. We had the pleasure of meeting him, talking to him at the Combine. His work ethic, man, is next level. And you can see on film that no matter what ball is thrown at him, he's working for it. And when you get to know him and you get to know the fact that he has, 10 other siblings.
Yeah, I was literally, I couldn't remember if he was the one that had all the siblings. But I think he's one of 11.
10.
Yes, he's one out of 11, if I'm not mistaken. And he's playing for something so big, and it's so much, but it's thrilling for him. It seems like he loves being
13
that guy.
siblings.
Well, fits me. 13. Yes, he's a sibling of 13, hard worker, really can ball out. Now, Quentin Johnson is a guy also from TCU that a lot of people are starting to gravitate towards. He's showing some of his explosiveness, and I think he more so fits what the Cowboys like. Hometown guy, not too far. Yeah. So there's an accessibility to him, being able to see him at TCU. I'm sure some of our folks have. And so I'm interested in those two guys. I think that they're getting a lot of buzz right now for a reason. And with the top 30 list, Cowboys took, I think, 5 guys that they had on their top 30 list last year. Well, 30 visits, rather. So this may give us a good depiction. They're looking at wide receiver, y'all. Like to your point, they are looking at wide receiver. Mingo, Tank Dell. These are gentlemen that go we've talked about on the draft show, maybe first, second round guys. So they want explosiveness and a guy on the wide receiver position that can come in and play. I like it.
A couple things that I did notice when I was watching some stuff on Zay Flowers was his hands and how good he is with his hands and being able to adjust to catch the ball pretty much wherever it is around him in his radius. It's very, I'm not comparing, but it's very Des Bryant-esque to where he can catch a ball in a situation where people are very handsy around him, because I feel like that's a big strength. Quentin Johnston, though, when I was looking at his stuff, what I loved is the adjustments that he made on the fly, because that's hard to do. He's very good with his route running. I'm gravitating more towards Quentin Johnson. You hit the nail right on the head, because he's the kind of wide receiver you're used to seeing with the Cowboys. And I just feel like if there was one off of this list, of course, that you had to really look for that would just kind of mold right in with the rest of the group, to me it's Quentin Johnston.
Yeah, and we call that catch radius.
Catch radius.
It's called. Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely.
Shout out to Aisha, our resident football expert on this podcast.
We love that. Thank you.
I am a big Jalen Hyatt fan. And
there you go. Burner.
And I'm going to tell you why. It's no secret I used to cover Alabama and Auburn back in my career, and it is also no secret that because I covered them, I am a big fan of Auburn and Alabama, particularly the Tide, because it's fun rooting for teams that win.
Roll Tide.
That being said, when I watched the Alabama-Tennessee game where Tennessee got the upset over Alabama and eventually moved into that number 1 spot, the main thing that stood out to me was the fact that Alabama's cornerback room was fantastic this year. You know, their secondary was great, and they looked like a word I can't say on this podcast because Jalen Hyatt tore them up. I think he set the record for most touchdowns in a single game by a Tennessee wide receiver. He had like 300 yards and 5 touchdowns in that game. And that was the first time that I had seen Alabama look like the underdog. Like, that was a game that Alabama deserved to lose because Tennessee came out well. Granted, Hendon Hooker also played well in that game, but he wouldn't have played well if he didn't have Jalen Hyatt. I'm also a big energy person. You know, like we can get into the X's and O's of what these guys can do on the field. We can evaluate that all day, every day, right? We can look at numbers and statistics. But the reality is, if the women's finals taught us anything, swag is important when it comes to being an athlete. Trash talk, energy, all of that. It's so important to be able to have a grip of who you are as a player. And I think that Jalen, given his skill, his speed, his ability, he also brings that kind of, you know, swaggy, like, I'm not going to be the loudest person in the room, but you going to feel me type energy. And I think that's what this wide receiver room for the Cowboys is missing. You've missed that with Dez, and, you know, CD is just starting to come into that a little bit. But I think you bring in a guy who, you know, you bring in a Brandon Cooks, who, like you said, he's a little bit different than what this team has experienced from a wide receiver standpoint. I don't know if you're going to have that chirp, that same energy. But if you bring in, you know, maybe a Jalen Hyatt who's going to have a little bit of energy, a little bit of sauce, that's just kind of something that stood out to me at the Combine. So I'm a big Jalen Hyatt fan. It's still Roll Tide, but he made it look good. Let's talk about a position, and Aisha, I'm kind of going to default to you on this. When it comes to the offensive line, that is a question mark that is going to be, you know, addressed this season as well as into the future, given that a lot of those guys in the offensive line are in the back half of their career. Give us some guys who, you know, the Cowboys maybe are interested in or should be interested in to help kind of keep that offensive line continuancy.
Oh, yeah. So Steve Avila from TCU has been getting talked about like crazy as of late. Just because when you look at the Cowboys offensive line, you're like, hey, what do they need? Guard, like you mentioned it also too. Like I feel like it's about that time to where I said at the beginning of the draft, I feel like guard feels like a need. Now they brought in Edoga, if I'm not mistaken, Chuma Edoga, to be to compete for that left guard position. But Steve Avila is getting a whole bunch of look right now because, dude, when you look at how football's being played now and how the running back position is kind of shifting into hybrid, wide, little bit of a slot receiver, little bit like I got to catch the ball at the backfield. A lot of offenses are going into moving, getting to the second level, getting out in space, all that stuff. Steve Avila is the guy that can do it just because his technique is just through the roof. To be such a young player, the technique is there, but his footwork and his ability to get off blocks, to get upfield and block linebackers, get them out the way, I think is impressive. I think he's been working out. He's been working out with some guys in the area. I've definitely seen different clips of him. He's very vocal about wanting to be a Cowboy, which is to be expected. But I know, again, close to home, he's been on the radar, I think, for a little second. But he's on a lot of people's radar. He's on a lot of people's radar right now.
That's the worst thing about the draft is because you fall in love is a little dramatic, but you know what I mean? Like you get attached to these guys and their personalities and you know who they are, and you're like, oh, we wanted to be a Cowboy, and then he ends up going to like the Eagles or something like that, and it's ugh.
Don't say that. Don't say that. Don't say that.
I also have another tackle. His last name is Bergeron, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see if I can find him here in my notes. But reminds me a lot of Terrence Steele in how
Patrice? No, that's a hockey player.
No, that's okay. I'll get him here. I just wanted to put him on everyone's radar because I do. Matthew Bergeron. That's why we have producers.
Shout out Jazzy.
Come through.
I found who you're talking about.
He's for sure a hockey player.
He definitely is.
Yes, but this gentleman, if I'm not mistaken, is a tackle. I do think that he could have some ability at guard just because of, again, like we talked about, he's an athlete. He can get out in space. The footwork is crazy. The kick step is crazy. He's explosive. He truly reminds me so much of Terrence Steele and how he plays, and I think he's a sleeper a little bit and on somebody's boards. A lot of these tackles people are trying to turn into guards because the guard classes. It's not a whole bunch there.
Yeah.
So, yes, I want to put him on your radar. Matthew Bergeron from Syracuse. He is a tackle. I'm not sure if Cowboys are going to go tackle, but if they did, this guy is somebody that could possibly move to guard. And then also Steve Avila, like he's on everybody's radar right now. But I think he was on the Cowboys' radar a little bit earlier than everybody else's, so I'm hoping that helps out.
He's a hometown guy from Arlington, if I'm not mistaken, right? Steve Avila? I'm pretty sure.
Is he from Arlington?
I think, yes, he's
Tater
from Arlington.
tots.
So
Did I miss that?
So what I really appreciate about the scouting team from the Cowboys is, Texas high school, let's start at the high school level. Texas high school football is on another level compared to most states. And so they have that time really to just keep an eye out for players from the time that they're freshmen in high school all the way until they're graduating college to see the growth that they've made and the strides that they've made from that time, which I think is really cool that this organization values their hometown guys so much because, not to say other places don't, but you can look at, a guy from Arlington who has grown during this time and you can see that progression and what they've made during that time. But somebody like Steve Avila, I think, would just fit in very well, being a hometown guy and even little things. Your family's here to watch you. Those kind of things mean so much to players when you talk to them in the locker room, to be able to have their family to watch you play a game or come to those events. So of course, he's on my radar too because he's on everybody's. But Eagles, back off.
Well, I wouldn't. I'm not even in the mood. But the Eagles did show you how far you can go with just having a dominant offensive line.
Yep.
And if Terrence Steele is rehabbing and coming back, Zach Martin being back, Tyler Biotish worked his tail off last year. We saw improvement from him. And Tyler Smith is your left tackle. And you can just plug in a guard. That's going to make your offense go better for your quarterback, which Mike McCarthy talked about in his presser. He really is focusing on making sure the quarterback is in position to make better decisions. And that is offensive line all the way also.
Yeah, I was laughing when you were talking, Jess, because on the NFL Network, we were talking about Aaron Rodgers earlier,
he's right here.
And now he's buying healing crystals to help him make that decision. So
what is this, y'all?
On that note, we wish Aaron Rodgers well on his healing journey. We've got about 10 minutes left on the show, so we're going to go ahead and take our second and final break. But when we come back, ladies, we're going to have a little bit of fun with this NFL draft. I don't want to give it away too much, but we will talk a little bit more about the NFL draft when we come back on Girls Talk, Boys Talk.
At Jigsaw Dating, we obviously want the Cowboys to bring that 6th ring home. But to be honest, we're more focused on finding the person who will put a ring on your finger. That's why we created a dating app that reveals your face through meaningful conversation, so you can date deeper. Because it's personality that matters the most, not looks. Join Jigsaw Dating today, dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys.
All right, Pepsi-loving football fans, it's time we had a lesson in trash talk. And I'm not talking about that stuff that happens on the field. What I'm talking about is trash, and it's the only thing that belongs in your garbage can. Now, recycling might not be as thrilling as converting a 4th and long, but next time you're thinking about throwing that Pepsi Zero Sugar bottle away, just cap it back up and pretend you're down by 6 with the recycling bin wide open. Know the difference? Make a difference. Be a team player and recycle. Visit PepsiTrashTalk.com to learn more.
With Smoothie King's original Angel Food and new Angel Food Slim without added sugar, you no longer have to choose between treating yourself and hitting your goals this summer. You don't have to choose between great taste and feeling great. Because at Smoothie King, every blend is made with whole fruits and no syrups, so you can satisfy your cravings without compromise. The only choice you will need to make is which one is best for you. Try our classic Angel Food or the new Angel Food Slim, blended without added sugar. Smoothie King, rule the day.
Back to our final few minutes here on Girls Talk Boys Talk, presented by Jigsaw, the preferred dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys. Let's have some fun with this draft, ladies. But first, let's hear Jess.
Get behind the scenes. Look at all things Dallas Cowboys with tours of AT&T Stadium and the Star, presented by SeatGeek. Check out the locker rooms, playing fields, Super Bowl memorabilia, and more. Get your tickets today at DallasCowboys.com/tours. Are you saying that wasn't fun? Those little ad breaks? It's fun.
What?
You were like, we're going to have some fun, but first.
Oh.
That's not fun? Tours are actually really cool if you get a chance to take them.
The tours are a lot of fun.
They're really cool.
I'm still shook about the healing crystals, so that's probably why.
They're still talking about it.
Maybe I need some healing crystals. Let's get into this draft a little bit more, ladies. So obviously we know the Cowboys will pick 26. That'll be their first pick in this draft, barring a trade, or anything like that. But we had a question on our website as part of our mailbag series, and somebody asked, if the Cowboys had the first overall pick and you couldn't trade it away, what would you do with it? A couple of our writers had some interesting points about it. I know Patrick Walker, said, well, I would pick C.J. Stroud and I would trade him away because, that's kind of basically going the backdoor route into utilizing that pick. But I don't want to do that. If the Cowboys had the number one pick, they had their pick of the litter of anybody in this draft, I want to know who you're taking and why. And that's what we're going to spend the last 5 minutes or so talking about.
All right, I'm gonna go first because I was really excited about this question because it was just an automatic in my mind. So when I'm thinking of how to spruce up this team, and if I had one wish, it would be 2 Micah Parsons on the defense. Like, not just one, but you have 2, okay?
Oh,
so
2 physical Micah. I thought
2
you were
physical.
saying your wish would be 2 Micah Parsons.
No,
Jess, that's not how this works.
You clone Micah Parsons in a way.
Okay. Like
All
that.
right, so you have an outside linebacker from Alabama. There you go. Will Anderson Jr.
Baby.
You literally just took the...
And here's the thing. It's funny because we were talking about D-Ware this morning, and I was like, oh, mini D-Ware, who I wanted to talk about in this segment. He has burst, and the things he could do, guys, you could have a Will Anderson and a Micah Parsons on one side just rushing the edge to get to a quarterback. They would have no chance.
Yeah.
No chance.
Love that.
You are done. That is it. The arm strength and the arm reach that this man has is incredible. Dan Quinn would absolutely utilize this man on the defense. Edge rusher that has burst. Give me Will Anderson Jr. That's who I would pick in a heartbeat away.
I love Will, and I love he was such a joy to cover. When they didn't win that national championship against Georgia, I was heartbroken because I thought that would be it for it. I thought that was the last of Bryce, and that was the last of Will Anderson, and so it was exciting to see them come back. And again, I'm a big energy person. Will has some of the best energy I've ever seen that matches his playing ability. So I love that pick. Aisha, you can't pick Will because Jess already picked him. He's off. So
petty.
I'm sorry. He was the first one.
He's good, though. He's good, though.
As soon as I saw your email with the rundown, I was like, I know who I want. And I'm going to say it first because I know they're going to say him if I don't.
Okay. So my mind immediately went edge as well.
Okay.
Just because it's one of the only other positions I think you can justify taking a first.
Imagine
a tight end, offensive lineman, first round on the first pick.
Can you imagine?
Safety, DB even.
No.
It's
like,
hey, look. But here's the beauty of this. Here's the beauty of this is that we make the rules here.
Yeah.
So throw out what everybody does in the draft. This is girls talk, boys talk draft. We can do whatever we want, except trade the pick away because that's the rule.
Not except.
There's one rule.
There is one rule.
Okay, maybe. Okay, I think I would stay at edge.
Okay.
Stay there, girl. Stay there and own it.
If you weren't going to take Will Anderson, barnacles.
Sorry. I know.
Oh, it's so hard because, like, I don't have a whole bunch of edges that are... Okay. I might consider taking Nolan Smith.
Love that. Glasses.
Okay.
Might consider taking Nolan Smith out of Georgia because he brought up it is like the tank thing is a serious thing that you do need to be looking to maybe replace. I know you got Sam Williams and that's important, but Chauncey Golston was a guy that was, to me and to a lot of fans, brought in to be the tank replacement. But Chauncey is starting to play a lot of DT, so maybe I say Nolan. But I'm trying to convince myself.
I know. I was gonna say you're just over there convincing yourself.
Because I would not. There's not a lot of guards that. Not a lot of for the first pick. Oh, I can't even say Nolan. I take that back.
See, and you're thinking about this too analytically.
Yeah. No.
What do you mean? Okay.
Have fun with it. Have fun with it.
She shanked it. She really just took.
I went for the kill.
Here's my thing. Will was gonna be my first pick, so I have backups. You want me to go?
I knew Will would be everybody's first pick.
I'm going to go. Okay. So I'm going to give you some time to gather yourself. You're going to be our finale. So I personally, I'm an offensive gal. Like, I love Micah Parsons. I love what he brings to the table. I think it'd be great to have two of him. But I'm going offense.
All right.
I'm going offense.
Where you going?
And I'm taking Bijan.
Oh,
Are you
did
joking?
it. She did it.
For the first pick in the Girls Talk, Boys Talk NFL draft, I'm taking Bijan Robinson. And I'm going to tell you why I'm taking Bijan Robinson. When I'm thinking about from a draft perspective what I want out of my draft picks, especially given how quickly the NFL is changing, how different you have to be as a wide receiver or a running back, you have to be able to bring a different skill set in order to be successful. And when I think about all of that, Bijan checks every one of those boxes. Bijan Robinson is a guy who has been on everybody's radar from the jump at Texas. Yep. And he was the one player who was electric from start to finish. Like, I can't think of a bad game that he had. And even if it was considered a bad game from him, he was still an impact guy, And he's got a great personality. I mean, he told us at the Combine before games he listened to ocean waves and birds chirping. Like, give me that over healing crystals any day. So if I have the first pick for the Dallas Cowboys, I'm taking Bijan Robinson. I can't even fathom what it would look like to have a Tony Pollard and a Bijan Robinson in the same backfield.
It would just make sense.
Yeah. So give me that.
Oh, Jesus. Okay, I figured it out.
Bijan or bust. Haley did it. She did it.
It's so crazy.
For all you Bijan truthers, she did it just for you.
I think you wouldn't be alone. Like, if the scenario, if you gave other people this scenario, I think you might not be alone. Because he's such a playmaker. Wouldn't. He's such a difference maker. Yeah, you could definitely
He was my second choice if one of you took one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Will was first, and then I was like, Bijan.
Okay, I think I figured it out. All right, so you are getting Stephon Gilmore on like a rental right now.
Okay.
Right?
We love a good
the
rental
T.Y.
agreement.
Hilton special.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, like kind of like that.
Yeah.
So you might need a corner after next year. Maybe you can get a corner and you can hold him for ransom, maybe. Because somebody, because people gonna need a corner. Because I think similarly, not the same way as like a quarterback, but people will need a corner later on in the season. But you can maybe, train up Devin Witherspoon to be from Illinois to be the next corner next to Trayvon Diggs or across from Trayvon Diggs. He is so dominant. He can press. You talk about that flair, that attitude. He's up in your face.
Love energy.
I love a corner that is not afraid to come up and tackle, to be in your face, to let you know I'm here. And he's one of those guys. 17 passes defended, 3 ints, 41 tackles, 2.5 tackles for loss this past season. Like dude can ball out, right? And another thing is the Illinois defense was so well coached. They spoke very highly of him as well. You know that you're getting a character guy too. So Devin Witherspoon, out of Illinois cornerback, he's high on a lot of people's boards. He might be most people have him as the first corner to go. So Devin Witherspoon is my pick.
All right.
Love
See?
it.
That
Beautiful.
wasn't so bad.
Beautiful.
So in the first ever Girls Talk, Boys Talk NFL draft, the Dallas Cowboys will be taking Will Anderson, Bijan Robinson, and Devon Witherspoon. Aisha's still not convinced.
Explain to the people that we could not take quarterback and trade it away. You got to explain that.
Right.
You couldn't.
That was the one
It's
rule.
unfair. Yeah, it's not unfair, but it defeats
it makes
the
it
purpose.
too easy.
Yeah.
It makes it too easy.
Yeah, because then I'm taking Bryce Young.
Okay, that's fair.
All right.
I ain't going to beat you up on that. I ain't going to fight you on that one.
I'm taking all the Alabama players.
There was just one rule.
I didn't really have football at my colleges. I mean, North Texas did, but we're not going to get into that. So Alabama's my football school.
And I teach him.
Roll Tide, baby. This has been such a fun episode, ladies. So excited to get back with you on the mics. We're going to do it all over again next Thursday when we will be 2 weeks away from the NFL draft. It's coming up quick, but that'll do it for us here on Girls Talk Boys Talk, presented by Jigsaw. For Jess Navarez, Aisha Morrison, I'm Haley Sutton, and we'll see y'all next week. Go Mean Green.
This has been a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about this,